Hello everybody, my name is Benjamin Bloom and I have just read the FA report into the Kiko Casilla, Jonathan Lecco issue. They've released it today. Remember, Casilla was punished on Friday, given the 8-game ban, £60,000 fine, and committed to do face-to-face education on racism. We knew we were going to get more info. This pertains back to a game in September between Leeds and Charlton, and they go into great detail in this report. I did a video on this on Friday, and it was a little bit speculative because we didn't know all the information. But now, in painstaking legal detail, 62 pages, I must confess, now I'm not a lawyer. I'm also not a Charlton fan or a Leeds fan. I'm an Ipswich fan, hence I'm just off to watch Ipswich play Fleetwood. But I've had a quick scan. First of all, the FA give a statement with the report. The statements come out and then the report's just attached at the bottom, so they're not chanting this from the treetops. They say they want to give written reasons to provide clarity on the standard of proof. They defended the civil balance of probability standard, which was a problem for Leeds fans. We were talking about the difference between criminal, here's proof you did it, and civil standard of probability. Well, we think it's very likely that you did it, but we can't prove it. They state that works in family courts. They said they look for compelling evidence, and I quote in this report, the requisite standard and in reality beyond the requisite standard of evidence was found. Remember, at all times in this is an accusation made by Jonathan Lecco, heard by Macaulay Bonne, but denied by Kiko Casilla. That needs to be made clear. Now, the report, well, I don't want to say is damning, but the language used in the report is damning. And for those of you of a nervous disposition, I will not say the words, but what Casilla is alleged to have said to Lecco, even not Lego, after punching the corner away, is you effing and then the N-word, which I think we all know what it is, and I don't need to say it. They've used FA footage and YouTube footage, and I don't know if it's the right YouTube. I've seen tweeted the YouTube footage. It seems to be from high up in the stand from a Charlton fan. There's a whole spiel on there. I must confess, I haven't read every word of it. It'll take me ages, and I've got to get down the road, and I wanted to get this video out. There's character witnesses from tons of players. Most of the players on the pitch, in fact, have all sort of testified in this case. So a few things that we can clear up now that people weren't happy with on Friday when this news first broke. First of all, we heard lots of rumours about what the verbiage was, and that it was something to the effect, the rumours were that it was something to the effect of Mark the Black Guy, or just describing Jonathan Lecco's skin as black. And I think Leeds fans were upset about that, in that was a descriptive term and something had been lost in translation. But that's been cleared up now. The accusation, and this is alleged because Casilla denies it, and this is civil and not criminal, is you effing N-word. So that's been cleared up. So I'm sure there's not really anybody tuning into this issue now that thinks that that's an acceptable thing to say, or that something's been confused or something's been lost. Remember, and I'll repeat myself, Casilla denies it. So the guy, there's a QC, he is named in there, McPherson, possibly, I think, if I've remembered that right. And 2 FA panelists, their independent panelists, were running this commission. And again, I'll say what the FA said, that they'd reached the requisite standard and in reality beyond the requisite standard of probability. So I guess the issue now is, do you trust the commission? Do you trust the QC? I'm not a QC. I have a degree, but they're the only letters I have after my name. So I'm sure there are going to be people, it's a paranoid world, that think that they're not trusting of the FA or the QC. I suppose that's up to people. If they think that the commission is not beyond reproach, then that may still be an issue. But I think the question for people now is, if they trust the QC and they trust the process, and the standard of evidence is compelling as they suggest it is. Casilla denies it. Again, I would invite you to go to the FA's website and read through the legalese and the report. That 8 games, £60,000 and some education may be the right punishment. I don't know what other things have been meted out similarly. Obviously, there's Luis Suarez years ago. There is Fernando Forestieri recently this season. And please, I apologise if I've got this wrong. I think his was 6 games. So this has been ranked worse, or a heavier punishment, certainly, than what Forestieri got. So in some ways, things have been cleared up. And if you are happy with the process of a QC being beyond reproach and an independent commission finding the evidence compelling and, again I quote, in reality beyond the requisite standard, then it's still up to everyone. Casilla denies it. The commission have found this. Then I suppose everyone has in their head whether they deem that's a standard enough to punish. Again, I would invite people to get into the comments. On the last video, a lot of comments were to the effect of that Leeds were being stitched up by this, by these findings, and that they weren't really having it. So I'd love people who commented on the first video, if they watch this one now, whether their mind has changed and maybe their ire is more towards Casilla. Again, I'll reiterate, he denies this. There's no hard evidence. He's been found guilty on the balance of probability. In reality, I quote, beyond the requisite standard by the commission. Charlton have released a statement. They say they're pleased it's resolved. They don't say they're pleased Casilla's banned. They say they're pleased it's resolved. They're disappointed at external online abuse now of Bon and Lecco. Obviously, since or during while this has happened, they don't specify what it is, and they mention previous abuse one of their players, Lyle Taylor, has received online, and they go on to denounce racism and kind of reiterate what most of football says about it. So there we are. I did get some criticism in my last video for sitting on the fence, but in a case where we're only talking about the balance of probability, it is very hard for one who isn't Kiko Casilla, Macaulay Bonne or Jonathan Lecco to really give a firm feeling. All I will say is that a QC and the 2 independent guys running this commission have tons of evidence, a 62-page report, and they have deemed that they have beyond the requisite, sorry if I keep coming back to that, requisite standard of evidence to say that beyond the balance of probability that this happened. Is that proof enough for you? I think that's down to every individual person as to what they think there. That's the system we've got. That's the system Casilla has been punished by. What I'd like to know, again, has this new information changed your opinion if you commented on the previous video, or even if you didn't and you're just watching this one and you think? And what do you think about the length of the ban, the fine and the education, etc.? Does that now match up with what has been published as the events And again, I will repeat, Kiko Casilla denies this. I'm not asking anyone to say in the comments, I believe Kiko, I believe Leko, because we don't know. And we all have to be honest about that. It's one of those things, there is no proof unless you were there and you're one of those 3 people, you either know or you don't know. What I'm interested in is what people think of the process, the burden of proof, how it's been released, and the ban. Woof! Again, I apologise if people are finding me sitting on the fence. I find this difficult to talk about. I'm not comfortable with racism, and I'd like to say I'm not comfortable with any type of abuse. I've been abused online. I'm a YouTuber. It just happens, and I would prefer to live in a world where that happened less. It's difficult to talk about. I'm not a lawyer. My sister is, actually, so she would be better probably talking about this, but may not want to go on the internet doing so. So I apologise if you found me sitting on the fence, but again, we don't know, and I've tried to get through the legalese. So do let me know what you think in the comments. Again, it's a sensitive issue, so let's try and be smart about it. If you agree or disagree with anything I've said, then please do comment. Again, keep it polite. This whole thing's about a type of abuse, so let's not pile on in that regard. I hope my thoughts have been some assistance in maybe you clarifying your own, but I don't know any more about this than anyone other than the QCs. I could read the full report and know as much as anybody. And Jonathan Leko, Macaulay Bonne and Kiko Casilla. So really interested in people's thoughts. And hopefully, 1, I don't have to decipher legalese, and 2, I don't have to talk about more abuse cases and particularly racism. Hope I've got through that and that's made some kind of sense, and I've not sat on the fence as I was accused of last time. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hopefully we can have a kind of smart discussion about it. And my God, I'm not qualified to do this, but I am qualified to go and watch Ipswich versus Fleetwood. So I'm going to drive 20 miles down the road and do that. Get involved in the comments. Follow me on Twitter @BenjaminBloom, and I will see you all soon. Over and out.